Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's track guide for the IRO4. We are back at the Hungaroring for what is a bit of a change of pace from the hectic Road America that we just had, because there's a lot less draft here. So overtaking is a little bit different and definitely more difficult and definitely less plentiful. But that said, I think the lap is a lot more fun to do. And even if you're having a hard time actually like getting overlap and overtaking people or getting alongside to go wheel to wheel, which you can do at a lot of places here, the lapping and trying to catch up to someone and find that opening is a different and unique challenge from last week, and I think still super fun. This lap that we're about to look at is from last season. I have updated the editing a little bit on the track guide from last season to refresh it, but this is the same track guide that I put out last season, just looking a little bit nicer. But again, all the corner concepts and everything like that are still applicable. Let's go ahead and take a look at the lap before we dive into the details. Before we take a look at the track conditions, I do just want to say if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so now, especially if these track guides have been helpful for you because it helps me a ton with trying to grow the channel and getting some momentum with this. Also, check out the description below for a ton of different links. There are chapter markers for this video if you're looking for a specific part of the video. There's a discount code from radness.com if you're looking for sim gloves. There's a link to this lap on Garage 61 if you want to compare your telemetry to mine. There's a link to my Discord. There's a link to the F4 Racing League that I help run on Thursday nights if you're looking for a racing league. So there's just a ton of stuff down there. So check out the description. But anyway, let's take a look at the track conditions and then finally dive into the details corner by corner for the lap. Before we get started, let's take a look at our track conditions. We're on a 21 degrees Celsius track with 20-degree air temperature, and the the track is actually completely clean. So no rubber down, no marbles, no nothing. Usually we're seeing this around 50%. To be honest, I don't know if that made our lap easier or harder. But yeah, a clean track state feels pretty rare. Anyway, so that's what we're working with here. So if you want to compare your lap times directly with mine, you want to try to emulate these as closely as possible. This week, the track also does have a rules tab. I would highly, highly, highly suggest to go through this. The off tracks are very, very nitpicky here, and the way you can use curbing is somewhat inconsistent throughout the track. So yeah, I do suggest just going through this, reading through it, and essentially making sure that you understand in each corner where the limits are and where you're going to get penalized by going over the limits. So, anyway, definitely read up on that this week. It is useful knowledge. As for our laps, we did a full fuel stint. We had a lot of stuff in the 41s. This 41196 actually had an off track. It was a little scruffy. Ultimately, our last lap of fuel we had in the tank, we were able to finally put a clean lap together that mostly highlighted the line around the track. There are a couple of places where we were a little off and we lost a little bit of time, but I'll point those out throughout the lap and talk to you about what we're aiming to do and where we should have made an adjustment to get there a little bit better. But anyway, let's go ahead and analyze the lap corner by corner. For turn 1, we have a tightening radius corner, meaning the angle of the corner gets more acute as the corner progresses. Because of this, we need to set up for a slightly later apex than it might appear on entry to ensure that we don't run wide on exit. We can start braking right around the white line in the road, and we want to be patient when waiting to turn in. As we approach the marshal stand on the left, we can start to turn in and trail off the brakes as we set up for the later apex that we're searching for. As we approach the apex, we can smoothly start to get back on throttle to keep the rears from slipping, and our goal from this point forward is avoiding running wide on exit or having to lift off throttle. On exit, we're aiming to use all of the red and white curbing that we can while keeping our right tires within the white line of the track. If we go over this white line, we'll get an off track. As we come off the exit curbing, we'll maintain our turn-in arc as we head down towards turn 2. One quick note here is that turn 1 is the most likely overtaking opportunity, so you should practice running both a tight inside line and an outside line that leaves a car's width so you're prepared for wheel-to-wheel racing. If racing in this car is like others, you may find yourself side by side through this corner and a few corners that follow while attacking or defending a position. Turn 2 is an almost 180-degree corner that's off camber. Off camber means that the road dips away from the apex of the corner rather than angling towards it or even being flat. This means that the car is more prone to understeer if we go in too quickly or spin if we have the weight too far forward. Essentially, the road is working against us rather than for us. With this in mind, we want to brake gently and ease the car into the corner while aiming to commit back to throttle as soon as we see our exit. We can start braking right as we reach the curbing on the right and start to guide the car gently into the corner as we slowly ease off the brakes, focusing on managing the balance of the car. We're shooting for a relatively early apex for a corner that has this shape because of the off-camber nature, and as we get there, we're looking to keep the car balanced by applying light pedal inputs as needed. The apex curbing will push us a little wide on exit, so we want to get as close to it as we can while avoiding actually using it. We probably have about another foot to play with here, but we really don't lose a lot of time by not using all of that. As soon as the exit curb comes into full view, we can aggressively commit back to throttle, and we're aiming to use all of the exit that we can. I'll note that the exit does lead directly into the entry of turn 3, but because turn 3 is easily flat out, we're more concerned with getting a good exit out of 2 rather than opening up turn 3 more than necessary. As we complete our exit, we will continue to move back to the left to open up turn 3 a little bit, but not any further than halfway across the track. As mentioned, turn 3 is easily flat out. As soon as we exit turn 2, we'll open up a little bit for turn 3 before we start to move back to the right. We want to keep the throttle on the floor as we aim to use all of the red and white curbing at the apex and on exit, and we're looking to maximize our speed by avoiding tire scrub and staying as smooth as we can. We can go a little outside of the white line on exit here without getting an off track, but it's not necessary to go much further than we do on this lap. Turn 4 is a bit tricky because it's a pretty quick corner with a blind apex and exit all while we're cresting this hill, so the car is on edge quite a bit here. The exit of turn 4 also leads directly into the braking zone of turn 5, so our goal here is to maintain as much speed as we can through the corner because we're not on throttle too long after the corner exits. As we approach the entry curbing on the right, we want to mount that and start to lightly brake. Because the apex is slightly blind, we're looking for cues on entry to turn in, and we should look to do so right around the time the entry curbing starts to curve slightly away from the corner. At the apex, we're looking to use all of the red and white curbing and even get our left tires up on the concrete. This is one of the places that I mentioned that on this lap we do lose some time by not being on the ideal line because we turned in just a blink later than we wanted to. This means that we're slightly compromised on exit and we can't commit back to throttle quite as quickly as we'd like to. The perfect line here would ideally mean being about half a car's width further to the left at the apex. It doesn't hurt us so much here, but every little bit of margin helps, especially in something like qualifying. Rotation of the car is also very important here at the apex to help us avoid running wide on exit. On exit, we want to use all of the curbing while keeping our right tires on top of the green curbing. If you drop a tire off the green curbing, it's an off track. Another thing to mention about the green curbing is that if you hang your right tires off of the lip of the curbing or just dip your rear tire off, it's very likely that you'll lose grip and spin. If you do find you're going to run a little wide on exit here, it's best to completely go over the edge with the right-hand side tires and take the off track to avoid this mistake. Remember, the off track is better than spinning the car and crashing. Going too far can also result in a slowdown penalty, so it is a fine line to play with here, but as long as it's the tires, it'll be okay. As we get to the exit curbing, we'll continue our arc, working back to the left-hand side of the track to open up for turn 5 as much as we can. Turn 5 is a long right-hander that's almost another 180 degrees. Our goal here is to slow the car in a controlled manner through the early part of the corner and get back to throttle early on exit while using all of the track there that we can. I should point out again that it isn't necessary to be all the way to the left on entry because we've prioritized exiting turn 4 with as much speed as possible. As we come to the end of the turn 4 exit curb, we can start to brake and turn in for turn 5. It can be easy to leave braking or turn in too late here, which can result in an easy lockup or spin, so be careful with that. We're also seeing a pretty quick direction change, so having the weight too far forward by braking too much as we commit to turn in can also cause a spin. As opposed to turn 1, turn 5 is a slightly increasing radius, meaning that we have more exit radius to work with than we do on entry. Because of this, we look for a slightly earlier apex and to commit back to throttle slightly early as well. As with other apex curbing, we also want to get as close to it as we can without actually touching it because it can help push us wide on exit, which we want to avoid. As the exit starts to open up here, we can run the car all the way out to the edge of the track while keeping our right tires within the white line here to avoid the off track. Turns 6 and 7 are the chicanes, so we can talk about them together. We can start to brake right at the beginning of the curbing, and we want to mount it with our left tires. As we turn in for the corner and come off the curbing, the drop will help us slightly with rotation. We can turn in right around the Marshall stand, and our goal at both apexes is to place the center of the car over the center of the red and white curbing. I should note one thing about turn-in points. In general, they're a good reference, but the most important thing is to have your eyes focused on the apex of the corner. You can use your peripheral vision for the turn-in points, but it's important to remember that your hands will take you where your eyes are looking. We're looking to commit back to throttle as soon as we get to the turn 6 apex, and as long as we've slowed the car and rotated the car enough on entry, we shouldn't need to lift from this point forward. As we come off the turn 6 apex, we immediately transition to the turn 7 apex as we once again aim to center the car over the apex curbing. On exit, we want to use all of the available pavement to maintain good speed as we head down towards turn 8. Turn 8 is the beginning of a set of corners that all bleed into one another. Our goal here for the next few corners is to set up our exits to allow for a good entry in the next corner. Because we're focused on entry of the next corner, we have to think in reverse a little bit. Essentially, what will it take to make the next corner on the best line? For turn 8, we're looking at a later apex to allow us to open up the entry of turn 9, and we'll continue this pattern throughout the next few corners. We can start turning in right around the beginning of the advertisements on the right while on full throttle. After turn in, we'll fully lift to get the weight of the car forward and induce a little bit more rotation. As the car rotates and we know we're going to hit our late apex, we can start to get back on throttle as we aim to keep the car as far left as possible so we can prepare for turn 9. For turn 9, we're looking to do something pretty similar to turn 8. We still want to apex later, but in this case, it's because our exit is a bit tighter. That said, we can be much more aggressive on our exit usage in turn 9 because turn 10 is easily flat out in this car and we don't need to open up much for it. However, that does mean our exit here is most important because we're on full throttle for a longer period of time on exit and beyond. Once again, we'll start to turn in on full throttle and lift fully to induce more rotation by transferring the weight to the front tires. As the car rotates, we're focused on waiting until we know we're going to hit our later apex. As we get there, we can commit back to throttle and move our attention to the exit. If we commit to too early of an apex or get on throttle too early, it's very easy to run wide here and get an off track or a slowdown. So patience getting to the apex and getting back on throttle are important. On exit, we can use all of the red and white curbing, but if we run any wider than that, it's an off track. If you run outside of the green turf here, you can also receive a slowdown, so getting the exit right by getting our apex right is key. Turn 10 is once again easily flat out, but our focus is still on setting up for the next corner. Because of this, we want to stay tight to the apex and as far to the left as we can on exit to set up for a good turn 11 entry. Turn 11 is the last sequence of these corners, and we're no longer worried about setting up for the next corner. It also leads onto a straight, so our focus here is 100% on a good exit. We're looking to use a little bit of the entry curbing as we start to turn in, which will help us with rotation as we come off of it. Once again, we're also going to turn in on full throttle and lift shortly after to shift the weight of the car forward for more rotation. As we get to the apex, we can commit back to throttle aggressively, and on exit, we're looking to use all of the green curbing without dipping a tire beyond it to avoid an off track or unsettling the car as we head down this back straight. For turn 12, we start to brake right around the 100-meter board or the start of the curbing. We're looking to use as much of the apex curbing as we can by placing the right tires on top of the concrete, and we want to commit back to throttle as we get to the curbing. On this particular lap, we miss that slightly and leave a little bit of time on the table, but it isn't a huge loss. That said, this does make the angle of approach on exit a little bit more difficult because we didn't use that extra tires width of space. On exit, we're also looking to use all of the red and white curbing, and as long as we keep our right tires in contact with that curbing, we avoid an off track. Any more than we use here and will invalidate our lap. Turn 13 is another 180-degree corner that leads pretty quickly into the final corner of the lap. We can use the Marshall stand on the right as our braking point, and we're looking to split the corner in half. We want to apex right around mid-corner and start to get back on throttle at that point. As with other areas of the track with this type of curbing at the apex, we want to get as close as possible to it without actually touching it, otherwise it'll limit our exit here. On this particular lap, we do get a little bit more rotation than expected, so we do mount that curbing slightly, but you can see and hear how it limits acceleration on exit just a touch. On exit here, we want to run all the way out to the exit curbing that's actually in pit entry before we swing back to the left side of the track for the final corner. For turn 14, we're right back into another 180-degree corner, but our goal is a little bit different. We want to start turning under full throttle, and as we get to this white line in the road, we want to start lightly braking to cement that rotation. We're looking to settle the car tight into the apex curbing as we round the corner. Right around the start of the inside wall, we can start to smoothly get back on throttle as we aim to once again stay tight through the corner until we can start to spot the exit curbing. As the exit curbing comes into sight, we can start to open up our hands as we look to use all of the red and white curbing to maximize our acceleration, heading back down this main straight to finish our lap at the Hungaroring. And as always, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who liked, subscribed, commented, come and hung out on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Elgato con la Pipa if you want to watch me live. Um, yeah, thanks again just for watching the video. In general, I hope you have a good week of racing. I hope you enjoy the Hungaroring. I hope it ends what is a very happy and fun season that you've had for season 1 2023, and I hope you take a lot of momentum from this week through week 13 into next season. Until next time, please take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.